This is Kite Cutter TV with another presentation. We gotta talk about this. Okay, guys, a psychologist and medical doctor were charged in a criminal complaint for their alleged role in a scheme to create fake medical diagnoses to help immigrants fraudulently obtain their U.S. citizenship. Those charged include psychologist Firoza VanHorn, 70, of Bloomfield Hills, and medical doctor Muhammad Awaisi, 61, of Pontiac. According to the complaint, immigrants seeking to become naturalized U.S. citizens must first successfully demonstrate the ability to read, write, and use the English language, and demonstrate a knowledge of the United States history and government. These requirements, however, can be waived for immigrants who can prove they are not able to meet the requirements because of physical or mental disabilities. The complaint alleges that VanHorn and Awaisi helped immigrants fraudulently obtain these waivers and hence fraudulently obtain U.S. citizenship by diagnosing the immigrants with medical conditions they did not have, documenting tests that were never performed on the immigrants, and prescribing medically unnecessary medication. VanHorn typically received $500 each time she created the fake diagnosis and medical records. We got that plus more immigration stories. Check this out.
2 Metro Detroit doctors are charged with faking records to help would-be immigrants beat the system and become U.S. citizens. Good evening. Thank you for joining us here at 6. I'm Dave Llewellyn.
And I'm Carolyn Clifford. In one case, a person claimed to suffer from PTSD as a tortured prisoner of Saddam Hussein. But the feds say it was all a lie.
The suspects are Firoza VanHorn, a psychologist who worked in West Bloomfield and other areas.
And Muhammad Awaisi, a medical doctor who worked in Pontiac. He was caught up in a medical fraud case 2 years ago.
7 Action News reporter Jim Kirchner live tonight in West Bloomfield. Jim, in this new case, the doctors allegedly making big money?
The feds say these 2 doctors falsified records in more than 1,000 different cases at $500 a pop. That would be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And what happens here is the allegations in this case are that the defendants scammed the system and they took kickbacks so that people wouldn't have to pass the test.
The process of becoming a U.S. citizen involves passing a tough test that immigrants can speak and write the English language, know U.S. history and civics. The test can be waived for people with physical or mental disabilities that last a year or more. Feds say doctors VanHorn and Awaisi faked medical records, including for a man who was injured in a car accident. But they embellished it, saying he was a victim of Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein.
The person had been shot. Person had been bombed, had been imprisoned by Saddam Hussein for over a year, had been tortured by terrorists. Completely false, fanciful, outrageous lies.
This is the West Bloomfield office of psychologist VanHorn. People here say it closed after the FBI showed up this morning. The feds say in court documents they had confidential informants to build their case. 7 Action News first met Dr. Awaisi in Pontiac when he was accused of falsifying medical claims submitted to an insurance company.
Surgery and spine surgery, and we also run a pain clinic too.
Now the 2 doctors are charged by the feds with conspiracy, visa fraud, false statements, handing out drugs tied to more allegedly faked medical records.
The defendant might actually prescribe you opioids for pain that you don't have. I mean, this is adding to the opioid crisis in America, and it's all just a scam.
These 2 doctors face up to 25 years in prison if convicted. The feds say this is an open investigation and others may be involved. Reporting live in West Bloomfield, Jim Kirchner, 7 Action News.
Jim, thank you for the live report.
We do have an update tonight on the war on drugs here in Texas. There are said to be about 3,000 Border Patrol agents from Corpus Christi down to the Mexican border. Many of them are focused on stopping the flow of illegal drugs from Mexico.
And tonight, our Michael Gibson takes a look at how that effort is going. He also spoke with one of the top interdiction officers in the entire country about how there seems to be a massive amount of hard drugs hitting our streets.
These are photos provided to 3 News by our Border Patrol. The pics are from recent drug busts throughout the Rio Grande Valley sector. That area stretches from the border to Corpus Christi.
A lot of people think that, it's a border issue, it's a border problem, but it's not. These drugs are heading into middle America. We get them at our checkpoints. We interdict there. and keep them from hitting the streets of Middle America.
RGV Supervisory Agent Christian Alvarez also told us that marijuana is a constant problem and that last year, Border Patrol confiscated 118,000 pounds of pot. Meth is the hard drug that agents see the most of, and in 2019, they seized about 4,000 pounds of the illicit drug destined for all points north.
It's a false floor. Oh, yeah.
This is video from a stop made last week along Highway 77 by the Nueces County District Attorney's Criminal Interdiction Unit. Mike Temez is the supervisor of the agency and says the cartels have the pedal to the metal as they're racing to move drugs from Mexico to the U.S. as the economy here continues to reopen and people now seemingly have the money to buy drugs.
There has been a lot, I'm talking a lot of meth and a lot of coke hit within the last 2 months, and all due in part to the COVID restrictions. Speaking with folks, other interdiction groups throughout the country, that's one thing that we're seeing, and we've seen it here as well.
That's why Temez says he continues to try and get area law enforcement agencies to join in his effort to expand the task force to be able to patrol more of our highways and seize cartel drugs in cash.
I just left the meeting today with some constables where we're going to be adding folks to this criminal interdiction initiative that we're doing with the district attorney's office, which is a huge plus. That's a huge, huge, huge plus, Mike. We're putting more officers on the highway.
Border Patrol says it has a total of 3,000 agents covering the entire Rio Grande Valley sector, and many of those officers in that day-to-day battle to stop the smuggling of drugs. But many others are still weighed down by having to deal with human smuggling. Now, officials say the problem has gotten better, as just a few years ago, there were about 1,500 captured illegal immigrants each day in our area. That number is now down to around 500 each and every day. Michael Gibson, 3 News.
Well, continuing our crime news now, border agents in Salton City were able to seize nearly 16 pounds of meth over the weekend. It happened at the Highway 86 checkpoint. Agents actually stopped a Mercedes-Benz and were given consent to scan the vehicle with a mobile X-ray system. That's when they discovered 4 packages in the trunk of the vehicle. The substance tested positive for meth and is valued at more than $35,000. The driver, a 30-year-old citizen, along with the drugs, were turned over to the DEA.
In Nassau County, more than 24 members of a South American burglary ring have been arrested in multiple investigations. Police today detailed those arrests that took 20 illegal weapons off the street, they say. Among the 25 suspected gang members arrested was Brian Herrera Maldonado. He is accused of being part of a Chilean burglary ring that targeted homes in the tri-state area, Miami, and California.
The crew would come in, they'd scope out the area, they'd wait till daylight savings time kicks in, it's in darkness, they'll look for the mail, they'll look for lights that are on or not on, go around the back of the house, kick the door in, commit the burglary, and then reach out to the car to pick them up on an adjoining block and pick them up and they'd be gone.
That burglary ring reportedly stole millions of dollars in cash and jewelry.
Harsh words for San Diego Sheriff Bill Gore from immigration advocates. Here they are protesting today in downtown San Diego. The caravan came ahead of a big community forum tonight centered on the sheriff's annual report on transfers of inmates to federal immigration custody. News 8's Abby Alford joins us now with their call to action and how the sheriff's department is responding. Abby?
This was the 3rd annual Truth Forum, but the first in the evening to allow more opportunity for community input. And with 113 speakers, most all told the sheriff they wanted him to stop working with ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement.
Immigrant advocate groups not holding back on the sheriff's annual report about inmates transferred to immigration authorities.
Everyone in our community is less safe when community members are transferred to ICE.
This hearing is called a Truth Act, part of a state law requiring an annual forum on the sheriff's report of how ICE transfers from their custody. In 2019, the sheriff reported that there were more than 1,500 ICE release request notifications. 450 were granted either for assault, sex abuse, and child abuse. That's 65 fewer compared to last year.
I think there's some misunderstanding. I want to eliminate that misunderstanding. I think I'm prepared to compromise on a lot of these things.
But immigration advocates take issue with the sheriff's report.
It's important to recognize that transparency without accountability is not enough.
Personal stories from a woman who lost a family member to suicide because the family code was to not call police.
He was a brother and a son, and we miss him every day.
Critics say by the sheriff posting inmate releases, it's a loophole around SB 54, which is California's sanctuary law, which prohibits local law enforcement from enforcing federal immigration laws.
We were here 1 year ago bringing this to the attention of community and demanding that this stop, and the sheriff has ignored it. This practice of publicly posting release dates invites profiling, and it creates serious privacy concerns.
Supervisor Nathan Fletcher understands more work needs to be done.
How do we ensure that trust exists?
More than 3 hours of discussion, and the community remains frustrated with the sheriff's office working with ICE in any way.
You're as un-American as they come. You've lost your soul along the way of identity politics and probably never even knew what being a hardworking American really meant.
You can review the Truth Act report on the sheriff's website. Just go to CBS8.com and click on the help button.
He has a lot of options. These are all voluntary transfers.
We now know how many inmates were transferred from the Sheriff's Department to ICE custody last year. The data released during a public forum. ABC 10 News reporter Laura Acevedo shows us what immigrant rights groups are asking for and the sheriff's response.
The meeting lasted nearly 4 hours with roughly 200 public comment speakers asking Sheriff Bill Gore to stop his department's transfers to ICE. In 2019, the Sheriff's Department says it transferred 271 people to ICE for offenses like assault, battery, and sexual abuse exploitation. This information released by the Sheriff's Department Tuesday night during the virtual Truth Act Forum. The forum required by law for any local law enforcement agency that chooses to transfer people to ICE. After the department's presentation, hours of public comment criticizing the department's practice. Also a presentation from the San Diego Immigrant Rights Consortium.
We want to end all transfers regardless of whether they were allowed under the law or not.
Critics also argue Sheriff Bill Gore has found a loophole, posting list of inmates pending release, asking for the department to stop.
What we're seeing is ICE picking people up at the parking lots. This is a practice that we are seeing all throughout our county.
The sheriff addressing the meeting after listening to the speakers, saying he wants to form a working group to look at some of the issues brought up in public comment.
I think we can come to an accommodation when it comes to the inmate pending release report. I think we can make changes there, significant changes.
The sheriff says he's only following the Values Act, transferring those with a qualifying conviction or judicial warrant, saying ICE is only allowed contact with inmates if they agreed to be interviewed, saying most decline. ABC 10 News reached out to ICE for comment, and they told us they were looking into it, but so far have not responded. Laura Acevedo, ABC 10 News.
Undocumented immigrants who come to the United States as children safe from deportation since it was created. That was back in 2012. Well, in 2017, the Trump administration tried to end the program, but in June of this year, the Supreme Court blocked that attempt. In July, though, new regulations were put on the program, further complicating the process for those covered by DACA. As you can see, for those under DACA, issues regarding renewal status and new applications, they keep changing. Well, just this weekend, a federal judge ruled against those rules, giving those under DACA a different feeling. ABC 15's Annette Montgomery is live in Horry County to tell us what changed and how two local DACA recipients are feeling about this tonight.
Well, Trey, in July, these DACA recipients thought they would have to go through the renewal process every year instead of every 2 years. They tell me this recent ruling by a federal judge against that gives them hope.
What does your future in the United States look like? If you're under DACA, it's a question that hasn't had a clear answer.
Well, it's been a headache, just the simple fact of they going back and forth with the program about, they're going to put it on hold, and then they take that away, and then they go back in there and say, no, we're going to put more restrictions in there.
I felt bad for everyone that really had to go through unable to reapply and new applicants. It hit me, I think it was about a year and a half ago, I was unable to reapply. And my DACA was going to end pretty soon, so I was really like looking back and forth, what was I going to do?
In July, Chad Wolf, the acting United States Secretary of Homeland Security, issued this memo saying that new applications for DACA would not be accepted. It also said that current recipients have to renew every year opposed to every 2 years. Two things Christian Gonzalez and Christopher Solis Fajardo, two DACA recipients in South Carolina, say makes things for applicants and recipients a lot more difficult.
I was the last one to get to 2 years, because they just recently did just the 1 year, and that's kind of rough because it is expensive.
This weekend, a federal judge ruled that the rules issued by Wolf are invalid, something these men tell me gives them hope.
I'm happy to hear that. I hope that with this, we can keep moving forward in the right direction about not so much having this program to be renewed every 2 years, but have something permanent, you know?
If it does stop the 1 year and going back to 2 years, then I'll be able to go back to every 2 years, which is great.
Hope for the future, and hope that maybe one day soon DACA recipients will be a little more certain about their future in the United States.
This ruling would be subject to appeal if the United States government chooses to do so. Live in Horry County, Annette Montgomery, ABC 15 News.
The Nevada GOP once again alleging voter fraud in the 2020 election in a new lawsuit just announced this afternoon. This one joins a list of others filed in recent weeks despite no evidence of any widespread voter fraud. Orko Manna joining us live from the party's headquarters with more on this latest legal challenge. Orko.
Well, David, this is the fifth lawsuit the Nevada GOP and the Trump team have filed. They continue to claim that there was major voter fraud in the 2020 election, despite providing no concrete evidence. A lawyer for the Trump campaign even saying President Trump won here in Nevada. Now, the Trump campaign filed this latest lawsuit in Carson City District Court this afternoon to contest the election results. Final numbers show Joe Biden beat President Trump by nearly 35,000 votes in Nevada. The legal challenge largely includes allegations we've heard before, including that more than 15,000 people voted both in Nevada and another state. Voters who are listed as dead voted, and that the signature verification machine in Clark County was not reliable. This all comes back to the unsubstantiated claim that Nevada's expanded mail-in voting system resulted in irregularities.
Nevada and Clark County have created this crisis. Reckless, unsolicited mail-in voting has created this crisis.
The Nevada Secretary of State, who, by the way, is a Republican, has consistently said there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Clark County officials also just came out with a statement saying the Trump team and GOP are, quote, parroting erroneous allegations made by partisans without firsthand knowledge of the facts. And it's important to note that most of the lawsuits and legal challenges filed by the Trump team have been rejected by the courts. There is one case pending in federal court. Reporting live in Las Vegas tonight, Orko Manna, 8 News Now.
Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Till next time, God bless. Peace.